Much, Thomas. It's we're very fortunate to have you here today and to hear about the story of Frankfurt and how it's developed over the years, and as well our joint work together. I guess we'd love to hear a bit more about some of the biggest learnings you've had, I guess, working with our team in assessing and developing the ecosystem, and maybe a couple of examples of how data has helped drive conversations on policies or programs that are extremely needed within the ecosystem with different stakeholders.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that as I said, helped us, I just introduced, that was the general ranking and the general benchmarking, where it's about, because the Pope in their own house is not always the best to bring the message. So it was really helpful that you supported us there, and not just because you thought it's good, because you were actually fact-driven, number-driven. You'd identified the gaps and the opportunities. And then a second example is, I think, a very good one. We carried out a bigger study, the scale-up report on Frankfurt. So it's not only the general benchmarking we did, we also said, why don't we focus a little stronger on the companies that really have the potential to become big, the scale-ups, not only the early stage activities, but why don't we think about the scale-ups? And this report actually was really helpful to many different extents. But one example, and where there was really now a clear result, is one of the things you suggested to build on the strengths. And you said, well, what you have already is you have a strong fintech community, financial market community, cybersecurity is quite okay, and artificial intelligence. And we actually proposed and recommended to focus a little more on these technology streams, which was helpful because right now there's a policy initiative, lasts for 1.5 years now already, where it's about setting up a competence center for artificial intelligence, science-based. That's 12 million of funding going exactly in that two initiatives. 20 new professors will be established at the universities, and we as TechWatch play a major role because we want to translate all of the science results into the startup community. So that is not only about talent students starting, but actually the PhDs, the postdocs, and that new technologies which are being developed are not just scientifically of value, but also brought to the startup community and really applied in the technology community. And this is clearly where you had impact, because your study, the bigger one, suggested exactly that. You suggested that focus on certain streams of technology. That's just one more example that that was really helpful.
And we briefly touched on before on the importance of benchmarking and comparing your ecosystems. In your work in developing the Frankfurt startup ecosystem, how important has this been to benchmark and compare your ecosystems nationally or regionally or globally?
That's a very good question, because well, I should not be saying that, but I will say it. We always say we shouldn't compare ourselves too much with other ecosystems, because every ecosystem is unique, and it's really hard to say we're better than them. It really depends on the metrics. However, as there's a lot of value, because you, as you said, you can learn from the others, and you can really see what they've done good, and then see what fits for our ecosystem and what doesn't. And the second thing is that policymakers do work like that. Even though I personally say that I don't care where innovation comes from, where startups are located, I don't care. The most important thing, it has an impact. I'm not really focused on Frankfurt only. We started building our global community. So whether they are located in Africa, Asia, or the US, doesn't really matter to us, right? We want to apply and innovate. However, policymakers, they have a task to do, which is supporting the local ecosystem. So apart from really learning from other ecosystems, they of course look at, where's Frankfurt located? Is it rank X, rank whatever, right? So this is kind of the two parts where it really helps.
And I guess delving deeper on a bit more on benchmarking and comparing, how important is it comparing over time? And I guess for your vision of the future for the Frankfurt startup ecosystem, and can you tell us a bit more about what you're looking towards for the future for Frankfurt and with your work?
Yeah, so we always say that we're still not doing good enough. I mean, as I said, some of the numbers are quite okay, but everybody else is also doing something, right? And we all need to do more. And it's the question of doing the right things. And we decided, as I said, quite early on to really heavily involve the universities, run talent programs. And we know that this is a long-term shot, but currently, just to give you some numbers, we have per year 200 to 300 students running through our programs, which is not a lot. However, it's okay, but we want to just really bring that number up to 1,000 to 3,000 students per year that are actually having a touch point with the university. If you look at the startups, as I said, we're supporting roughly 300 startups currently, and there is more room to support the startups. We as Techquartier, I mean, there's more startups in the entire ecosystem, but I think these are the two things. Technology, as I said, artificial intelligence is the clear focus. But if you ask me, if you want to really spark innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups, you need to invest in the human capital, in the people. And there's no better way than tapping into the potential of the young students. Everybody can be a founder, but I think this is a huge potential in our ecosystem. 200,000 students, and we're just having a tiny bit, which is 200 per year, that we're really running through our programs. I think there's a lot of room for improvement for us.
And I guess a final question I would love to ask is, I guess, how important is utilizing data to align and convince different ecosystem stakeholders? I mean, public, private stakeholders, they each have their own agendas, their own points. How important is it bringing together all these different stakeholders, utilizing the data and research that you have?
There's only one answer. It is highly important, because, as I said, that it's always easy to have qualitative arguments and to inspire with passion and tell them, hey, this is what we need to do, and this is what's important for the future, not just of Frankfurt, but for the future of the entire industry, the economy. But if you have numbers, if you have facts, if you have, as I said, benchmarks where you see this is what they do well, this is what they don't do well, this is where we're located, this is where we can improve. This is really, really important to have that, because otherwise your arguments are just qualitative, and then you can inspire. But if you have the numbers and if you have good data, that always supports your arguments. And it's not just that, but it turns out to have a lot of new information which you didn't know. And this is where I think data is really important.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today. And I guess